morning. Today we are going to talk about parenting practices. So I've created some other videos around the topic of specifically creating order in your home in terms of the physical space, as well as creating routines and structures. I also have resources available on my business website, Playground, which you can look at. And then, of course, if you want individualized help with that, you are welcome to reach out to me regarding my consultant resources or services. So we are starting today by talking specifically about parenting. And this is kind of a minefield, I feel like, when we talk about what is the best way to parent. Because as you've heard me talked about, if you've watched my other videos or read any of my writing, I feel like parents receive far too much information and feel overwhelmed regarding how best to parent their children. And what makes me saddest isn't that all the advice being offered isn't great advice. There's a lot of feedback and insight and suggestions out there that is very helpful for certain families. But just like when we discussed creating order in your home, the best way to raise your children is very specific to you. The thing that I feel like often gets overlooked is that while parenting is a significant challenge, it does not need to be nearly as hard as it often is made out to be in modern families. I'm not sure if this is coming across, but talking about this actually makes me really uncomfortable because I am not a parent, and even as I'm speaking and stumbling through, I can feel well, you're not even a parent. How do you know what it's like to raise a child? Which is an excellent point. And I'm constantly aware in my work with families that I don't have that lens. If you know my story or don't, just a little bit of it here. My husband, Matt, and I got married, planning to start a family within a few years, and something that we both always wanted. And when we started trying to conceive, we couldn't. And 6 years later, surgeries and IUI treatments and other types of treatments, we still had no luck. At one point, we decided to go through the foster care system to adopt from foster care. But right at the moment when we got our license, we were shocked to discover that we were pregnant. Unfortunately, we miscarried a couple weeks after learning that, and that was just kind of the end of that process. We were really thrown for a loop with thinking we would never get pregnant and then finally getting it and losing that. And so it's really, we decided to move on from the fostering, and maybe someday we'll come back to that, but for the time being it's not the right choice for our family. Just for right now, I hope that someday it will be. The foster care system is a really incredible thing to be a part of, to be able, I hope, I'm sure there are families who I'll end up connecting with, and families I've already connected with who have foster children in their home now or have adopted from the foster care system. And that's just a really, really beautiful way to make a family. And so if you know people like that, make sure you're reaching out to support them. There's some unique challenges associated with that, and it takes a village. So be the village. And that's why I'm here, because while I am a mom in my heart, and I feel like I have a very close connection with all of the students I've had over the years and kind of think of them as my little babies, though of course in a different way. I think sometimes it can be helpful to have an outside perspective looking in. And so hopefully someday I will end up being a mom, but for now I am here to help you as a family, and having a perspective as a teacher and as somebody that has studied families intensely, just for my own fascination and because I'm in close contact. And then when I was trying to become a mom, looking at every resource I could. I mean, I had like bedtime routine sheets and just everything I could find. I would distract myself with the whole trying to get pregnant process by looking at all the things I would do once I became a parent. So all of that research and perspective and talking to parents and seeing, I've been really fortunate in having the opportunity to talk to such a diverse range of parents. I mean, on every end of the extreme spectrum, and then kind of those parents that are in the middle. So attachment parents, I don't even want to go into it, all the labels. The parents who are trying to parent in a European style, just the one extreme to the other. I love it. I love it all because I love it all, but I also, it all makes me angry in the sense that, I mean, it doesn't have to be that hard. And it breaks my heart to see families tangled up in knots internally and then by extension in their homes because they're so worried about getting it wrong that they don't even know where to start. So let's start. What do you want your child to be? What sort of human being do you want to grow as a person in regard to their character? You looking to raise someone that is kind and compassionate and empathetic? Are you very concerned about creating an environment in which your child is just really in touch with their own feelings and able to regulate? So there are many things to consider, right? But if you just dive into all of the advice and all of the tips and tricks without starting from a place of what is our ultimate goal? What are we trying to do? Who are we trying to raise? What are their needs, preferences, and desires and dreams? And establishing that together, that's the starting point. The starting point is, why are we doing this? What's the point? And then once you know what your goal is, then you can decide, of all of the resources available to you as parents, which ones match and line up with your goals. Let me give you an example. So typically when I give these examples, I tell you about the parents I work with or friends who are parents. But today I'm actually going to use myself as an example, even though I'm not a parent, because it just feels more natural, because I know what I want more than I can say what other people want. So for me, I often look at my students as if they were my cat's playing with my toes. This is Pinky. Hey, buddy. Hey, are you playing with some toes? You can go back to sleep. Anyway, so I often think of my own students in my classroom as if they were my children, and I have certain goals for them that I'm very conscious of, and that informs everything I do. Obviously, as a teacher, as a public servant, I have specific responsibilities as well, whether or not I fully am committed to those. So that kind of messes things up. But in general, I want my students, so if I think of one child, I want this child that I'm raising, that I'm helping grow into their fullest potential, to be a kind, loving human being who considers the needs of others and works to create positive change in the world. I'm looking to be a part of growing a human being who is kind toward themselves, who has a strong sense of their own value and lovability, and who feels comfortable engaging with the world, who is very aware of themselves and their needs as well as the responsibilities they've chosen to take on, who works hard at the things they care about, and who ultimately feels great about who they are, what they're offering in the world, and who moves through life with a general sense of calm, ease, and joy. High expectations, right? But I mean, as I've talked to other parents, it's similar, right? Most parents I want my child to be a good person. I want them to be happy. I want them to like themselves. I want them to be intelligent. So, and that's another goal is especially, I'm an educator. I highly value education, but not for the sake of education, for the sake of application. Learning is its own reward. I mean, there's just joy in knowing, and I want my child to be able to experience that joy. It's part of being human. It's just this quest for knowledge and the excitement of discovering something new, and I want them to be able to experience and enjoy that, but also to utilize that knowledge in a way that feels meaningful to them, to make the world better, to contribute, so they have that sense of meaning and purpose. So I want them to feel that. So the child that I've described has certain characteristics, right? They are independent, they are motivated, they are kind-hearted, they are persistent, they embrace their own failures with grace and determination, and work to build and grow themselves. They accept themselves fully, weaknesses and all, or perceived weaknesses and all. So these are the goals I have for my students. So moving into the school year, I very actively create an environment in which I can meet those goals. And this is the bridge between knowing what we want and who we want our children to be, and then how we parent, or in my case, how I teach and interact with my students and build those relationships. So that's a starting place, is what sort of human being do you want to send off into the world? What kind of adult do you want your child to be? And then to think about the skills involved. And then we start to think about, okay, how do I build those skills? How do I actively and intentionally build those skills? And that's what the next couple videos will be about. I hope this wasn't confusing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.